One morning, Thomas was being cleaned when Gordon arrived. Mud had blown all over his smart blue paint. "Hello, Gordon," called Thomas. "You look as if you've had a mud bath. Be a sensible engine. Have a shower instead." Gordon snorted. "I haven't time to dawdle over my appearance like fussy little tank engines do." The wind blew stronger. "Phew, Gordon, slow down," called his driver. This made Gordon even crosser. "I'll be dirty and late, he hissed. At the next station was a sign. All trains must wash down daily. James had just finished being cleaned. "Come on, Gordon," said his driver. "You'll feel better after a good hose down." "Pah!" said Gordon, and angrily let off steam. "You're a very naughty engine," said Gordon's driver. "Now James will need another shower. You'll have to wait your turn till later." "Good riddance," huffed Gordon. "I'm far too busy to waste time with water." He finished his journey safely and steamed into the big station. The Fat Controller was waiting. So were Gordon's coaches and the passengers. "Goodness gracious," said the Fat Controller. "You can't pull the train. Henry will have to do it. Gordon, you'd better get clean straight away." Gordon was soon being washed. "Mind my eyes," he grumbled. Then he pulled trucks for the rest of the day. He bumped them hard. "That's for you, and you, and you." "Trucks will be trucks," said James. "They won't with me," snorted Gordon. "I'll teach them." James got ready to take the express when Gordon returned. "Be careful," warned Gordon. "The hills are slippery and you may need help." "I don't need help on hills," replied James huffily. "Gordon thinks he knows everything." Earlier, a storm had swept Gordon's hill, blowing leaves onto the track. Even though the storm had passed, the hill was still difficult to climb. James knew this. The signal showed clear and James began to go faster. "I'll do it. I'll do it," he puffed. Halfway up, he was not so sure. "I must do it. I must do it." But his wheels slipped on the leaves. He couldn't pull the train at all. "Help! Help!" whistled James. His wheels were turning forward, but the heavy coaches pulled him backwards. The whole train started slipping down the hill. His driver shut off steam and put on the brakes. Then carefully, he stopped the train. Gordon saw everything. "Ah, well, we live and learn. Never mind, little James, I'm going to push behind." Clouds of smoke and steam towered from the snorting engines. "We can do it," puffed James. "We will do it," puffed Gordon. At last, they reached the top. "Beep, beep, thank you, goodbye," whistled James. "Poop, poop," answered Gordon. "Goodbye." That night, the Fat Controller came to see the engines. "Please, sir," said Thomas, "can Gordon pull coaches again now?" "If you understand that having a good wash down is essential to every engine, then yes, Gordon, you may." "Thank you," grunted Gordon. The other engines settled happily to sleep. "Dirty or clean, I'm a famous machine," murmured Gordon, but no one heard but him.
Fat Controller works his engines hard. But they are very proud when he calls them really useful. I'm going to the scrapyard today, Edward called to Thomas. What? Already? You're not that old, replied Thomas cheekily. Thomas was only teasing. The scrapyard is full of rusty old cars and machinery. They are broken into pieces, loaded into trucks, and Edward pulls them to the steelworks where they are melted down and used again. Today there was a surprise waiting for Edward in the yard. It was a traction engine. Hello, said Edward. You're not broken and rusty. What are you doing here? I'm Trevor. They're going to break me up next week. What a shame, said Edward. My driver says I only need some paint, polish and oil to be as good as new. But my master says I'm old-fashioned. Edward snorted. People say I'm old-fashioned, but I don't care. The Fat Controller says I'm a useful engine. What work did you do? My master would send us from farm to farm. We threshed corn, hauled logs and did lots of other work. The children loved to see us. Trevor shut his eyes, remembering. Oh yes, I like children. Edward set off for the station. Broken up, what a shame. Broken up, what a shame. I must help Trevor, I must. He thought of all his friends who liked engines, but strangely none of them would have room for a traction engine at home. It's a shame, he hissed. Then, beep, beep. Why didn't I think of him before? There, on the platform, was the very person. Hello, Edward. You look upset. What's the matter, Charlie? He asked the driver. There's a traction engine in the scrapyard, Vicar. He'll be broken up next week. Jem Cole says he never drove a better engine. Do save him, sir. He saws wood and gives children rides. We'll see, replied the vicar. Jem Cole came on Saturday. The Reverend's coming to see you, Trevor. Maybe he'll buy you. Do you think he will? Asked Trevor hopefully. He will when I've lit your fire and cleaned you up. The vicar and his two boys arrived that evening. Trevor hadn't felt so happy for months. He chuffered about the yard. Show your paces, Trevor, said the vicar. Later, he came out of the office smiling. I've got him cheap, Jem, cheap. Do you hear that, Trevor? Cried Jem. The Reverend saved you and you live at the vicarage now. Peep, peep, whistled Trevor. Now Trevor's home is in the vicarage orchard, and he sees Edward every day. His paint is spotless and his brass shines like gold. Trevor likes his work, but his happiest day is the church fete. With a wooden seat bolted to his bunker, he chuffers round the orchard, giving rides to children. Long afterwards, you will see him shut his eyes, remembering. I like children, he whispers happily.
One morning, Gordon was in the yard taking on a large supply of coal. "That's the third load of coal you've had today, Gordon," said James. "Some might say you're being rather greedy." "I'm an important engine," replied Gordon. "Important engines need plenty of coal, but I doubt if you would understand that, James." James snorted and went about his work. Later, Gordon was taking on water from a standpipe because the water tower was under repair. "I wouldn't drink too much of that water if I were you, Gordon. It might give you boiler ache." "Pah!" said Gordon. "What's this? Educating Gordon Day? First James and now you, Duck. Big engines have big needs. Little engines are just annoying." "Don't say I didn't warn you," laughed Duck. Later, Gordon steamed into the yard at the big station. "That's what I need," exclaimed Gordon. There, emerging out of the sheds, were 2 shiny tenders. "Now, if I had 2 tenders," said Gordon, "I wouldn't need to stop so often, and I wouldn't have to listen to silly little engines." "Those tenders belong to a visitor," replied his driver. Diesel sidled up alongside. "Everyone knows that tenders are a mark of distinction, but I'm afraid that no amount of tenders will save you in the end. We diesels are taking over, and we don't need tenders to make us important, not even one." Gordon was most upset. He was feeling just the same the next day. "I'm not happy." "I know," put in Duck brightly. "It's boiler ache." "It's not boiler ache," protested Gordon. "It's—" "Of course it is," interrupted Henry. "That water's bad. Your boiler must be full of sludge. Have a good washout, then you'll feel a different engine." "Don't be vulgar," huffed Gordon. He backed down onto his train, hissing mournfully. "Cheer up, Gordon," said the Fat Controller. "I can't, sir. Is it true what Diesel says, sir?" "What does he say?" "That diesels are taking over." "Don't worry, Gordon. That will never happen on my railway." "And one more thing, sir. Why did the visitor have 2 tenders?" "Because he lives on a railway with long distances between coaling depots." Gordon felt better. But Henry started complaining. He banged some trucks angrily. "I always work hard enough for 2, he puffed. "I deserve another tender." Duck whispered something to Donald. He was going to play a trick on Henry. "Henry," he asked innocently, "would you like my tenders?" "Yours? What have you got to do with tenders?" "All right," said Duck. "The deal's off. Would you like them, Donald?" "I wouldn't deprive you of the honour," replied Donald. "It is a great honour," continued Duck thoughtfully, "but I'm only a tank engine. Perhaps James might." "I'm sorry I was rude," said Henry hastily. "How many tenders have you, and when could I have them?" I have 6, and you can have them this evening." "6 lovely tenders," chortled Henry. "What a splendid sight I'll be." Henry was excited all day. "Do you think it'll be all right?" he asked for the umpteenth time. "Of course," said Duck. "They're all ready now." The other engines waited where they could each get a good view. But Henry wasn't a splendid sight at all. His 6 tenders were very old, dirty, and filled with boiler sludge. "Had a good wash out, Henry," called a voice. "That's right. You'll feel a different engine now." Henry was not sure, but he thought the voice belonged to Gordon. Toad the brake van was feeling sad.
Everywhere he looked, he could see engines and coaches moving steadily forwards. They all looked confident and cheerful. One day, he decided to talk to Oliver, the Great Western Engine. "I'm always going backwards, Mr. Oliver. I have forward-thinking views. I could be a leader, if you know what I mean." "You can't be a leader without a train to follow you. You don't have a train," Gordon said. Toad felt sadder still. Oliver wanted to help. "You're a very useful brake van, Toad. You help me brake and you keep my trucks in order when we go down hills." "I know, Mr. Oliver, but it would be so exciting to go forwards for a change instead of always seeing things sliding away from me." The trucks were cross with Toad. "Who's he to start complaining? He's lucky to be able to look after us. Let's teach him a lesson." The trucks decided to carry out their plan when they reached Gordon's Hill. When they were nearly at the top, they played their tricks. "Ready, steady, go," said the trucks, and they jerked at a coupling which broke. "We're making your wish come true, Toad." "Follow the leader," yelled the trucks. Toad was still in a state of shock, so didn't know what to think, and he couldn't ask the guard. He had jumped clear. "Faster! Faster! As fast as you want!" screamed the trucks. Suddenly, Toad found it all rather fun, but the fun was soon over. A crossing lay ahead and the gates were closed. Toad couldn't stop. Worse still, Toad now realised he was on the wrong track. There ahead was Gordon. The signalman changed the points just in time. "On! On! Faster!" cried the trucks. Suddenly, he saw James pulling a long, slow train. "Yikes! Help! Save me!" a quick-thinking shunter did just in time. "What was that?" exclaimed James. "The signalman warned the station master at the next station. There's a runaway coming. We'll send him into the sidings." "Help! Help!" called Toad again. Toad saw some buffers. "Those'll stop me." But the points to the buffers weren't set. "Oh no, I'm back on the main line." Meanwhile, Oliver was racing to the rescue. "I must catch Toad, I must." Toad sped past Henry. More danger lay ahead. Men were working on a bridge, but they had been warned about the runaway Toad and his trucks. They diverted him onto old sidings, straight into a muddy pool. Stopped at last. Oliver arrived, and when he saw Toad, he could only smile. A pond's the only place for a toad, I suppose. That night, Toad spoke to Oliver. "I'm sorry, Mr. Oliver, if I caused you any embarrassment." "That's all right, Toad. So what did you think of going forwards?" "It was fun, but from now on, I'll be happy to look forward to the future. Busy going backwards, so to speak."